I was sitting in a quiet medical clinic, staring at a faded painting on the wall when my phone rang. Something inside me tightened before I even answered it. A mother knows. "Hello," I said. "Mom," my daughter's voice came through, flat and distant. No warmth, no concern. "We're flying out to Spain tomorrow. I already sold the beach cottage and your old car. We needed the cash, I hope you understand." Then the line went dead. I stared at the phone, unsure if I'd imagined it. 46 years of raising her. Of late nights, scraped knees, missed dreams of my own. And she erased me with a 30-second call. "My name is Alina Hayes, I'm 72 years old. And until that moment I believed I knew my daughter. Just weeks earlier I had buried my husband, Thomas, the man I spent 47 years loving. He died quietly at our kitchen table one ordinary morning. Coffee still warm, toast untouched. He kissed my forehead like he always did and said, "I'll be right back." He never was. After his death, my daughter Marissa suddenly appeared more often. She checked on me, drove me to appointments, insisted I see doctors. I thought it was love. Now I understood it was preparation. Before the story continues, let me ask you something. Where are you watching from? Tell me your city in the comments. And if you enjoy emotional, real-life stories like this, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next parts. The beach cottage she sold wasn't just property, it was our refuge. Thomas and I bought it when Marissa was 16 after years of saving every spare dollar. Summers, birthdays, quiet Christmas mornings, it held our life. And the car, an old blue pickup Thomas treated like family. His scent still lived in the seats. She sold it like it was scrap metal. I sat there in the waiting room, surrounded by coughing strangers and buzzing lights, and something strange happened. I didn't cry, instead I felt calm. Because in that moment a memory surfaced, one I had buried under grief. 3 days before Thomas died, he handed me a thick envelope. "Ellie," he said softly, "put this in your dresser. Don't open it right away, only when you're ready." I had done exactly that and then forgotten it completely. The nurse finally called my name. The doctor said I was healthy for my age. Strong heart, clear lungs. I smiled politely, but my mind was already home on that envelope. I took the bus back since, according to my daughter, I no longer had a car. I watched the city pass by, people rushing through lives full of secrets just like mine. When I got home, I went straight to the bedroom. The envelope was still there, same place, same handwriting. My name written carefully across the front. I sat on the bed Thomas and I had shared for decades. The house felt quiet but not empty. The kind of quiet that listens. Inside the envelope were documents. Many of them deeds, certificates, statements, and a handwritten letter. My hands shook as I read. "My Ellie, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. Forgive me for keeping this from you. I wanted you protected, not burdened." As I kept reading, my breath caught. Thomas hadn't just been a retired transit worker. He had been planning for years. Hidden investments, properties under a company name, accounts I never knew existed, including my heart pounded the apartment building where Marissa and her husband lived. According to the documents, I owned everything, everything. That night the phone rang again. It was Marissa. Her tone was softer now, calculated. "We deposited your share from the sales. It's not much, but it should help you survive for a while." I laughed, out loud. Because my daughter believed she had taken everything from me, and she had no idea she had just stepped into a game she didn't even know existed. Marissa thought she had left her mother helpless and broken. But what she didn't know was that the real story was only just beginning. I barely slept that night. Not because I was afraid, but because my mind wouldn't stop working. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Thomas's handwriting, the neat loops of his letters, the careful way he had hidden an entire life of preparation right under my nose. At dawn, I made tea and spread the documents across the kitchen table. Property deeds, bank statements, investment certificates, everything was real, everything was legal, and every single thing belonged to me. For the first time since my husband died, I felt something other than grief. Clarity. By mid-morning, I placed a call to Mr. Lawrence Cole, the attorney Thomas had trusted for years. He answered with a warm, professional voice. "Mrs. Hayes, I was hoping you'd call someday," he said. "How are you holding up?" "I need to see you today," I replied calmly. "I found Thomas's envelope." There was a pause. "I'll clear my schedule," he said. His office was downtown, tucked inside an old stone building with tall windows and polished floors. As I sat across from him, I watched his expression change while he reviewed the documents. "Mrs. Hayes," he said finally, removing his glasses, "your husband was exceptionally careful. You are the sole owner of multiple properties, several investment accounts, and a private holding company." I nodded. "And the beach cottage. The sale was illegal," he said without hesitation. Your daughter had no authority, we can reverse it immediately. And the apartment building? I asked quietly. He raised an eyebrow. You mean the one your daughter lives in? Yes, you've owned it for years through the company, she has no idea. I felt no joy in that moment, no triumph, only a steady resolve. I don't want anyone to know, I said. Not yet, Mr. Cole leaned back, studying me. Most people in your position would already be calling the police. I'm not most people, I replied. I don't want revenge, I want understanding. He nodded slowly. Then we'll move quietly. Over the next few weeks, I lived two lives. To the world, I was a leaner Hayes, the lonely widow abandoned by her daughter. Neighbors brought casseroles. Store clerks spoke gently to me. People looked at me with pity, I let them. In private, I met with lawyers, reviewed contracts, and reclaimed what was already mine. The cottage sale was nullified. Funds were returned. The property was restored to my name without fanfare. Marissa never noticed. She didn't call, didn't text, didn't check in. Not once. Then one afternoon, she finally reached out. Mom, she said, sounding distracted. Just letting you know we'll be gone longer than planned. Europe is expensive, you'll need to manage with what we sent. How thoughtful, I replied gently. Don't be dramatic, she said. You'll be fine. She hung up again. I didn't cry. Instead, I scheduled another meeting with Mr. Cole. I want full operational control of the apartment building, I told him. No changes yet, just control. He smiled faintly. You're preparing something. Yes, I said. A lesson. One morning, I took the bus to the coast. I stood across the street from the beach cottage, watching strangers move inside what had once been my sanctuary. A man stepped outside and noticed me sitting on the bench. Are you all right, ma'am? He asked kindly. Yes, I said, just remembering. They had been told I was sick, weak, desperate. Marissa had painted me that way to justify her theft. That realization hurt more than the money ever could. A week later, Mr. Cole called again. Mrs. Hayes, there's something else you should know, he said. Your son-in-law has significant debt. Loans taken against the apartment, loans he shouldn't legally have. My grip tightened on the phone. And my daughter, she may be held responsible. I closed my eyes. Handle it carefully, I said. I don't want her crushed, I want her awake. That night, I dreamed of Thomas sitting at our kitchen table, smiling softly. You're stronger than you think, he said. I woke with certainty. My daughter believed she had escaped consequences by crossing an ocean, but consequences have a way of waiting patiently. Marissa thought distance would protect her. She had no idea that the walls she slept behind belonged to the very woman she betrayed. 3 weeks passed without a single word from Marissa. No calls, no messages, no postcards from Europe. To the outside world, she had disappeared into a dream life of cafes, shopping streets, and promises her husband had whispered to her. To me, she had vanished completely, just as she had intended. Meanwhile, the paperwork moved silently. Mr. Cole handled everything with surgical precision. Every document Thomas had prepared years ago now came alive, piece by piece, like a chessboard revealing itself. I signed where needed, asked questions where necessary, and learned things about money and ownership I had never imagined needing to know. The apartment building was the most delicate part. Technically, I had always owned it through Thomas's company. But now the structure was changing. Management authority shifted, banking access moved, leases were reviewed, nothing visible, nothing loud. But control had returned to my hands. One morning, as I watered the small garden in front of my house, my neighbor Clara leaned over the fence. Eleanor, is it true your daughter sold your cottage? She asked carefully. Yes, I said simply. Oh my dear, and she just left you like that. She did, Clara shook her head. I don't understand how children can do such things. Neither did I, but I was starting to understand something else. How easily love turns into entitlement when respect disappears. That afternoon, Mr. Cole called again. Mrs. Hayes, he said, your son-in-law's financial situation is worse than expected. How bad? He used the apartment as collateral without legal ownership. Multiple banks are involved. And Marissa, she likely didn't know, he said carefully. But legally, that may not matter. I closed my eyes. Thomas had predicted this. That was the painful truth. He had seen something in Marissa's husband that I had ignored. And he had prepared, not just to protect me, but to protect her from herself. Do nothing yet, I said. Let events unfold. 2 days later, my phone rang at midnight. It was Marissa. Her voice was different now, strained, tight. Mom, are you awake? I am. We have a problem, she said quickly. The bank froze our account. I'm sorry to hear that. They're saying there are loans we didn't fully understand, that something isn't right with the apartment. I stayed silent. Edward says it's temporary, she continued, forcing confidence. But I don't like it. I could hear fear slipping through her words. I'm sure it'll work out, I said gently. She didn't respond. Then she whispered, Mom, if something happens, if things get complicated, can I come stay with you for a bit? There it was, the first crack. Of course, I replied calmly. You're my daughter, she exhaled shakily. Thank you. When the call ended, I sat alone in the dark kitchen, not satisfied. Not angry, just aware. Marissa wasn't calling because she missed me. She was calling because her safety net was unraveling. The next week, news arrived quietly through Clara, who seemed to know everything that happened on our street. Eleanor, she whispered over tea, did you hear? Your son-in-law borrowed money using their apartment as security. I heard rumors, I replied. They say he may have fled, Clara added. Someone saw him boarding a train alone. I stirred my tea slowly. Fled. That night, Marissa called again, this time sobbing. He left me, Mom, she cried. He took what was left and disappeared. I said nothing. I don't know what to do, she continued. The banks are calling, I might lose the apartment. I closed my eyes, the apartment, the one she believed was hers. Come home, I said softly. We'll talk. Marissa arrived 2 days later. She looked thinner, older, the confidence she once wore like armor had vanished. She stood at my door with a single suitcase and red-rimmed eyes. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she said quietly, I never thought I'd be back like this. I stepped aside. Come in. She entered the house she had abandoned without a backward glance. The same walls, the same furniture, the same quiet strength she had mistaken for weakness. And as she sat at the kitchen table, breaking apart in front of me, she still had no idea that the roof over her head, and the life she was about to lose, belonged entirely to me. Marissa believed she had returned to safety. What she didn't know was that she was now living inside the lesson she never expected to learn. Marissa moved back into her old bedroom the same day she arrived. She unpacked slowly, as if each folded sweater reminded her of how far she had fallen. That room had once been her refuge as a teenager, music posters, secret diaries, late-night dreams. Now it felt smaller, heavier. I didn't think I'd ever sleep here again, she said softly, standing in the doorway. Life brings us back to places we thought we'd outgrown, I replied. She nodded, eyes lowered. That evening she cooked dinner, over-seasoned pasta, burnt bread. But I ate every bite without complaint. Guilt clung to her like a shadow, and I could feel it in the way she avoided my eyes. Mom, she said suddenly, I owe you an apology. I waited. I treated you horribly, she whispered. I thought you'd always be fine, that you didn't need me. The words cut deeper than she realized. I was wrong. Yes, I said gently, you were. She flinched but didn't argue. The days that followed were difficult for her. Banks called, letters arrived. She spent hours on hold, listening to recorded voices explain consequences she never imagined facing. Her confidence crumbled into exhaustion. She applied for jobs, was rejected, applied again, rejected again. Finally, she came home one afternoon and sat across from me at the table, hands shaking. I found a job, she said quietly. That's good. It's cleaning offices at night, I nodded. I don't think I can do it, she admitted. I've never done physical work like that. You can, I said calmly. You just haven't had to. She stared at me surprised, not angry, not comforting, honest. Each night she left the house in borrowed sneakers and came home exhausted, smelling of cleaning chemicals and humility. Her hands blistered, her back ached, but she didn't complain. One evening she collapsed into the chair across from me and whispered, I didn't know life could get this hard. I sipped my tea. I did, I replied. Behind the scenes, Mr. Cole worked relentlessly. Edward's trail had surfaced in France, forged documents, identity fraud. Evidence strong enough to free Marissa from legal responsibility, if I chose to use it. I waited, not because I wanted her to suffer, but because she needed to understand what she had done. One night, Marissa found an envelope while organizing boxes in the garage. Mom, she said, holding it carefully. This has Dad's handwriting. My heart skipped, but I remained calm. Inside was a small key and a note. Ellie, if Marissa is reading this with you, it means she's finally facing reality. The key opens a safety box downtown. Use it wisely. Marissa's eyes widened. Dad had a safety box. So it seems, I replied. What if there's money inside, she asked, hope flickering. Or lessons, I said. The next day we went together. Inside the box were jewels, old, valuable, family pieces. Marissa gasped. This could save me. Yes, I said quietly. Or teach you something. She sold them. Every last one except a simple ring I asked her to keep. With the money, she paid debts. Not all, just enough to breathe. That night she cried harder than I'd ever seen. I sold Grandma's necklace, she sobbed. I sold memories. I held her, not as a savior, as a witness. Weeks passed. Marissa changed. She spoke less but thought more, worked harder, judged herself more harshly than I ever could. Then one night she looked at me and asked the question I'd been waiting for. Mom, why are you still helping me? I met her eyes. Because love doesn't disappear when it's disrespected, I said. But it does change, she swallowed hard. Marissa believed she had reached the bottom. What she didn't know was that the truth she feared most was still waiting to be revealed. Marissa stopped crying at night. That was the first sign. She still came home exhausted from her cleaning job, shoulders slumped, hands raw from chemicals and long hours, but the tears were gone. In their place was something heavier. Acceptance. One evening, she placed a small envelope on the table between us. I paid another creditor, she said quietly. It's not much, but it's something. I looked at the receipt. She had paid it with her own wages. You didn't have to, I said. Yes, I did, she replied firmly. If I don't fix what I broke, I'll never forgive myself. Her words stayed with me long after she went to bed. The next morning, Mr. Cole called. Mrs. Hayes, he said, everything is ready. The evidence is airtight. Edward's fraud is documented. We can legally erase your daughter's responsibility today. I closed my eyes. And the eviction notice? I asked. It's prepared, he replied. 30 days, completely legal. I was silent for a long moment. Don't send it yet, I said finally. Not today. Are you certain? Yes, I said. I need one more thing. That afternoon, Marissa came home early. She looked pale. I got a letter, she said, holding it with trembling hands. From the building management. My heart remained steady. They're changing ownership structure, she continued. They say the apartment may no longer be ours. I nodded slowly. Sit down, she sat. I don't understand, she whispered. Edward told me everything was secure. Edward told you many things, I said gently. She stared at the letter again. If I lose the apartment, I'll have nothing. You already lost everything once, I said. And you survived. She looked up at me then, really looked. Mom, how are you still so calm? Because I already know the ending, I thought. But aloud, I said, because panic never fixes what pride destroyed. That night, Marissa didn't sleep. I heard her pacing, opening drawers, closing them, sitting, standing. Just before dawn, she knocked on my door. I need to ask you something, she said. Yes. If I lose the apartment, if the banks come after me again, will you still help me? I studied her face. Not desperation this time, fear mixed with humility. Yes, I said. But not the way you think. She nodded, accepting that answer without pushing. That told me everything. The next day I asked her to come with me downtown. Why? She asked nervously. To talk to someone who can help you, I replied. She hesitated. I can't afford a lawyer. You don't need to, I said calmly. We arrived at Mr. Cole's office. Marissa sat stiffly, clutching her bag, eyes darting between the shelves of law books and the polished desk. Miss Hayes, Mr. Cole said kindly, thank you for coming. She swallowed. I should tell you I don't have money. He smiled faintly and looked at me. That won't be a problem. She turned to me, confused. Mom, I took a deep breath. Marissa, I said softly, there's something you need to know, something your father planned and something I've kept from you. Her heart began to race, I could see it. Your father didn't leave me with nothing, I continued. He left me with responsibility. Mr. Cole slid a folder across the desk. Marissa opened it. Her hands began to shake, deeds, accounts, ownership records, her eyes widened. This says you own, the apartment building, I finished. The beach cottage, several others. She looked at me in disbelief. You knew all this when I came back. Yes. You watched me struggle. Yes, her voice broke. Why? I met her gaze without flinching. Because saving you too soon would have destroyed you. Silence filled the room. Tears streamed down her face, but they weren't angry tears, they were understanding. You let me fall, she whispered. I let you learn, I replied. Marissa finally knew the truth. But what she didn't yet understand was what Alina was about to ask of her next. Marissa didn't speak for a long time. She sat in Mr. Cole's office, staring at the documents as if they might disappear if she looked away. Her fingers traced the edges of the pages, proof that everything she believed about her mother, about safety, about control, had been wrong. You could have stopped all of this, she finally said, her voice barely audible. Yes, I replied, you could have saved me months ago. Yes, and you didn't. No, she closed her eyes, inhaling sharply. That was cruel. I didn't argue. It was also necessary, I said. Mr. Cole quietly stood and left the room, giving us privacy. Marissa turned to me then, anger flickering briefly beneath the exhaustion. I lost everything, she said. My marriage, my home, my dignity. No, I said gently. You lost illusions and you gained something more valuable. She shook her head. I don't feel stronger, I feel broken. Growth often feels like breaking, I replied. We sat in silence. Then she asked the question I knew would come. Are you going to fix everything now? I folded my hands in my lap. I can, I said. Won't unless you agree to something. Her eyes lifted. What? You will keep working, I said calmly. Not forever, but long enough to know who you are without comfort. Her jaw tightened. You're serious? Yes. You want me to suffer more? No, I replied. I want you to choose who you become. She stared at the floor. And the apartment? I will not give it to you, I said plainly. Not now, her breath caught. Then where will I live? With me, I said. As an adult, not a dependent. Tears welled again, but she didn't wipe them away. And the debts, she whispered. They're gone, I said. Legally erased, but you won't be told that until the paperwork is finished. She looked up sharply. You already did it, yes. Then why? Because freedom only matters when you understand what captivity felt like, I said. She nodded slowly. That night, back at the house, Marissa sat at the kitchen table long after dinner. I hated you for a moment today, she admitted. Then I hated myself more. That's progress, I said softly. She let out a shaky laugh. I used to think love meant being rescued. And now I know it means being trusted enough to face consequences. I smiled. Weeks passed. Marissa continued working nights. She paid rent to me, insisted on it. She learned to budget, to cook simply, to live without excess. She became quieter but steadier. One evening, she came home holding a flyer. I enrolled in community classes, she said. Social work, that's a meaningful choice. I want to help women like me, she said, before they destroy their lives chasing the wrong kind of love. I felt pride rise in my chest, but I didn't say it. Not yet. One afternoon, Clara stopped by for tea. I've never seen Marissa like this, she said. Humbled, focused. She's becoming herself, I replied. That doesn't happen by accident. No, I said. It happens by truth. The call from Mr. Cole came 2 weeks later. Mrs. Hayes, everything is complete. Your daughter is legally free. Edward has been arrested abroad for fraud. I exhaled slowly. Good, I said. It's time. That evening, I called Marissa into the living room. There's something else you need to know, I said. She sat. Your debts are gone, I told her. All of them, she froze. You mean, you're free, I said, completely. Her face crumpled. She covered her mouth and began to cry, not in despair but relief. You saved me, she whispered. No, I replied. You saved yourself, I just made sure you had the chance. She looked at me with a depth I hadn't seen since she was a child. I will never treat you like a burden again, she said. I promise. Marissa thought forgiveness was the ending. But Alina knew the real test was still ahead when power could be given or withheld. Freedom changed Marissa, but not in the way she expected. Instead of celebrating, she grew cautious. Thoughtful. Almost afraid of stepping into a life that could so easily collapse again. Each morning, she still left for work with the same quiet determination, even after I told her she no longer needed to. I'm not done proving something, she said. To whom? I asked. To myself, I let her. One Sunday afternoon, she sat across from me with a notebook. I made a plan, she said. I raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. She opened it and slid it toward me. Budgets, savings goals, education timelines, rent projections. I want to live on my own again, she said, but not in the apartment. I looked up. I don't want anything that was handed to me, she continued. Not yet. Something inside me shifted. And what do you want instead? I asked. A small place, she said. Something I can afford on my own, something I earn. I nodded. That's a good plan. She hesitated. Will you be angry if I leave? No, I replied. I'll be proud. Her eyes filled, but she smiled. 2 weeks later, Marissa moved into a modest studio across town. No view, no luxury, just clean floors and quiet dignity. She insisted on paying the deposit herself. The night before she left, she placed the simple ring her grandmother's on the table. I want you to keep it, she said. I shook my head. Your father wanted you to have something. Yes, she said, but not until I deserve it. I slid it back to her. You do now, she cried then softly without shame. Months passed. Marissa thrived, her classes went well. Her job promoted her to a daytime position. She started volunteering at a shelter on weekends. She called me not out of need but out of connection. Mom, she said one evening, I helped a woman today who reminded me of who I almost became. I listened. I always listened. Then one afternoon, Mr. Cole called with unexpected news. Mrs. Hayes, he said, your company's board needs a decision. You've remained sole owner for years. But there's pressure to appoint a successor. I already knew what he was asking. And your daughter, he continued, she would qualify if you choose to involve her. I'll think about it, I said. That night I couldn't sleep. Power, once regained, becomes a burden of its own. A week later, I invited Marissa to dinner. She arrived with flowers, simple ones. I've been meaning to ask you something, she said over dessert. Yes, why did Dad trust you with everything, she asked. And not me. I met her gaze. Because he knew you would have to earn it. She absorbed that quietly, then I took a breath. There may be an opportunity, I said. One that requires responsibility, discipline, humility. She stiffened slightly. What kind of opportunity? To learn how to manage something bigger than yourself, I replied. Without shortcuts. Her eyes widened, but she didn't rush to answer. Are you offering this to me or testing me? She asked. Both, I said honestly. She nodded. Then I want to earn it, she said. No favors, no safety net, I smiled. The next morning I handed her a folder. Read it carefully, I said. She did slowly, thoroughly. At the bottom was a single sentence. This role comes with no guarantee of inheritance. She looked up. You mean even if I succeed, you may receive nothing, I finished. Accept who you become. She closed the folder. I accept. Marissa believed this was finally her reward. But Alina knew the greatest test was still coming, one that would decide who truly deserved the legacy. Marissa approached her new role with the seriousness of someone who had already lost too much. She arrived early, stayed late, asked questions others were too proud to ask. She didn't mention that the company belonged to her mother. In fact, she avoided any hint of privilege, choosing instead to let her work speak first. Some people noticed. Others resented her immediately. She thinks she's better than us, someone whispered once, not realizing she could hear. She didn't respond. She remembered what arrogance had cost her before. I watched from a distance. Not as a protector, as a judge. Every report crossed my desk eventually. Every decision she made left a paper trail. I never interfered, not once. One afternoon, Mr. Cole called. Mrs. Hayes, he said carefully, there's an irregularity. My heart tightened. In which department? The one your daughter oversees. I closed my eyes. What kind of irregularity? A supplier contract, he replied. A small one but improperly approved. I exhaled slowly. Was it intentional? No, he said, but it violates policy. I thanked him and ended the call. The test had arrived sooner than expected. That evening, Marissa came to dinner. She looked tired, distracted. I waited. She ate silently. Then she said, I need to tell you something. I nodded. I made a mistake at work, she admitted. I approved a contract without full verification. I said nothing. It was small, she continued quickly. And I fixed it as soon as I noticed. No one was harmed. Did you report it? I asked. Her shoulders stiffened. No, she said. I was afraid. There it was, the same fear that once made her hide lie run. I plan to, she added. Tomorrow. I stood and cleared the table. Fear doesn't disappear because you've changed, I said calmly. It waits to see if you'll choose differently. She swallowed hard. Am I fired? She asked. I don't decide that, I replied. Your actions will. The next morning, Marissa reported the mistake, voluntarily, publicly. The room went silent when she spoke. Her supervisor stared at her. Why are you telling us this? He asked. Because it's the truth, she said, and because hiding it would make it worse. An investigation followed. For 3 days, she waited, didn't sleep, didn't eat. On the 4th day, the decision came. She was removed from the role, not permanently but publicly. She would return to a lower position. No announcement, no explanation, just consequence. She came to my house that night, eyes hollow. I ruined everything, she said. I poured tea. You owned your mistake, I replied. That matters. But I lost the opportunity, she said. Your trust. I met her gaze. You didn't lose my trust, I said. You proved it, she blinked. I don't understand. You could have hidden, I said. You didn't, that's the difference. She exhaled, trembling. The following week, something unexpected happened. Employees began speaking up more, reporting errors, correcting processes. Her honesty had shifted the culture, quietly, without recognition. Mr. Cole called again. Mrs. Hayes, he said, the board is watching your daughter closely. Her response changed things. I smiled faintly. Good. 1 month later, Marissa sat across from me again. I don't care if I never rise again, she said. I just don't want to be that person anymore. I reached for her hand. You're not, I said, but inside, I knew the final decision was approaching. Marissa thought she had failed the test. But Alina knew the real verdict would be delivered when the legacy was finally placed on the table. The board meeting was scheduled for a Friday morning. I had attended dozens over the years, always from a distance, always quietly. This time I walked into the room as Alina Hayes, not the widow, not the background figure, but the woman who owned every square foot of authority in that space. Faces turned. Some smiled nervously, others looked confused. Marissa wasn't there, that had been intentional. The agenda moved quickly. Profits, operations, forecasts. Then the final item appeared on the screen, succession planning. Mr. Cole cleared his throat. Mrs. Hayes has requested to address the board directly. I stood. For many years, I began, this company has operated under the illusion that leadership is inherited through comfort and confidence. A few eyebrows lifted. I disagree, I continued. True leadership is earned through accountability, humility, and the willingness to face consequences without running from them. I paused. There is a candidate I have been observing closely. Some glanced around the room. She is not perfect, I said. She has failed publicly. She has been reduced in rank. And she did not fight that reduction. Silence filled the room. She owned her mistake, I finished. That is the person I trust. A murmur passed through the board. I will not appoint her today, I said, but I will mentor her personally. When and only when she earns this role fully I will step aside. The vote passed, unanimously. That evening I invited Marissa for dinner. She arrived anxious, unaware of what had happened. You wanted to see me? She asked. Yes, I said, motioning for her to sit. I handed her a sealed envelope. She opened it slowly. Inside was a single page, a statement of intent, her name listed not as an heir but as a future leader in development. Her breath caught. I don't deserve this, she whispered. No, I replied, you don't deserve it, you're earning it. Tears filled her eyes. I thought I lost everything, she said. You lost what you didn't need, I said gently, and found what you did. We sat quietly. Then she asked, what happens if I fail again? I met her gaze. Then you fail honestly, I said. And you keep going, she nodded. I won't run again, she promised. I know. That night after she left, I opened the drawer where Thomas's letters were kept. I reread one I hadn't touched in years. Ellie, if Marissa ever stands on her own feet without resentment, then she is ready, not for wealth but for responsibility. I folded the letter carefully. She was close. Not finished, but close. Weeks later, Marissa stopped by unannounced. She looked lighter, calmer. I turned down a promotion, she said. I raised an eyebrow. They offered it too early, she explained. I wasn't ready, I smiled. Thomas would have smiled too. The next morning, Mr. Cole called. Mrs. Hayes, he said, are you certain you want to proceed this way? You could secure everything now. I looked out the window, watching sunlight spill across the garden. No, I said. Legacies rushed are usually wasted. That afternoon, Marissa texted me a single sentence. Thank you for not saving me too soon. I stared at the message for a long time, then I replied, thank you for choosing to stand. Marissa believed the story was ending. But Alina knew the final truth had yet to be spoken, the one that would define love, forgiveness, and legacy forever. The morning I decided to step back was ordinary. No announcement, no ceremony, just quiet certainty. I woke early, made tea, and sat by the window where Thomas used to read the paper. The garden was beginning to bloom again, slowly, stubbornly, without permission from anyone. That felt right. Marissa arrived later that afternoon. She looked different now, not confident in the old way, grounded in a new one. You asked me to come, she said. Yes, I replied. Sit with me, she did. I placed a slim folder on the table between us. This is not a transfer of ownership, I said before she could speak. Not yet, she nodded, listening carefully. It's a letter, I continued. One that will be activated when I'm gone, or when I choose to step aside completely. Her hands trembled slightly as she touched the folder but didn't open it. What does it say? She asked. That everything I built will go to you, I said calmly. But only if you remain the woman you've become, not the one you were. She looked up, startled. And if I do? She asked. Then it goes to causes that help women rebuild their lives, I said. And I'll still be proud of you. Tears welled in her eyes. You're not using money to control me, she whispered. No, I said. I'm using trust to free you. We sat together for a long time. Then she asked quietly, do you forgive me? I didn't answer immediately. Forgiveness is not a moment, it's a decision repeated daily. Yes, I said finally. Not because you asked, but because you changed. She broke down then, not from guilt but relief. I thought losing you was the price of my mistakes, she said. No, I replied softly. Losing yourself would have been. Weeks passed. I slowly withdrew from daily operations, not disappearing, just loosening my grip. Marissa stepped forward, not into power but into responsibility. She didn't rush, she didn't boast, she listened. One afternoon, she stopped by the house again. I met a woman today, she said. She reminded me of you, I smiled. Strong, quietly, she said, the kind people underestimate. I laughed softly. Yes, I said, that kind lasts. On the anniversary of Thomas's passing, we visited the coast together. The beach cottage stood as it always had, calm, waiting. Marissa stood beside me, hands folded. I used to think this place belonged to me, she said, and now I know it belongs to whoever respects it, she replied. We sat on the porch until sunset. No words were needed. That night, as I prepared for bed, I found the simple ring resting on my dresser. Marissa had left it there. Inside the band was a note. For the woman who let me fall so I could finally stand. I slipped the ring onto my finger, not as a symbol of wealth, but of wisdom passed on. People often think stories like this end with punishment or triumph, but this one ended with something quieter: understanding. A daughter who learned that love without respect becomes entitlement. A mother who learned that strength sometimes means stepping back, not stepping in. And a legacy that was no longer measured by property or money, but by the kind of woman who would one day carry it forward. Some lessons cannot be taught by saving someone, they can only be taught by trusting them to rise on their own.